been a factor, in some of our, I think, delays in terms of moving forward with this. But I really think that there are some individuals in the region who could be good representatives of their respective organizations and or themselves that could help us in terms of their perspective on transportation needs. And hopefully we can get them engaged, in the work of CTAC. I think that CTAC would benefit from their involvement, as well as the work of the TPO in general, to have them on board. There have been, some changes through the years and the months. For example, Thelma Bland Watson, the executive director of Senior Connections, has passed away. Sid Del Cartier, who was a private provider and was involved in EDAC, his business Van Gogh has gone out of business. The Arc of Richmond is now SOAR 365. So there have been some changes along the way, but with that being said, I think that it still would help us, that our overall processes will benefit from having a broader membership. I know that at one point there was some concerns on CTAC about bringing in individuals from EDAC and diluting voting strength and those sorts of things. I don't know that is still an issue. It doesn't seem to be, at least from my perspective, but that was one of the concerns that we kind of struggled with a little bit during some of those previous discussions.
I'll pause just a minute. I see that John Leonard is looking for the link to get into the meeting. So it was not, the problem was it was not included in the invitation. And so people typically, get their links from their invitation. So they probably went to the calendar and saw, oh, I'm supposed to hop on this meeting, and the link was not there. So,
well, hey, let me add to that though. I'm not an Outlook user, Lisa, and so I've got just the opposite problem that when they send invitations in a calendar invitation, it doesn't show up for me. So maybe we could actually do both.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Ken. And looking back at our membership list, our at-large members are those that are not county or city representatives. So that would be Virginia Conservation Network, 1 seat. League of Women Voters, 1 seat. Chamber RVA, 1 seat. NAACP, 1 seat. Richmond Area Bicycling Association, 1 seat. Virginia Association of Railway Patrons, 1 seat. And Virginia Commonwealth University, 1 seat. So that's 7. So we could add 5. Is that correct? Without having to go to the TPO and get a bylaws change?
Mm-hmm.
Or is that how you calculate the at-larges?
That would be my understanding.
Okay.
I think you're correct that we could add up to 5.
Okay.
Without the need for a bylaws amendment.
Okay.
What was Fred Fisher representing VCN at large?
Yes.
He is the alternate. Yeah.
Yeah, he was the alternate for VCN.
Right.
But if
Okay.
VCN wanted to have another representative, maybe Fred could talk to Charles City County and get to be the representative for them, because they have no member or no alternate.
And they certainly have a unique transportation situation there compared to the more urban counties.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful idea, and I would fully support reaching out to Freddie and seeing if he'd be willing to contact the administration and become named as their. I don't know if he could do both. I don't know.
Yeah.
He just retired. He'd do it.
Yeah.
That's a great suggestion. My thoughts, of course, we've got 12 at large voting, plus the jurisdictions, and how many jurisdictions are represented. I don't have the sheet in front of me.
Well, we don't, the only one that has no representative is Charles City.
Yeah.
There are a total of 9 jurisdictions, that have representatives. Charles City County does not have a a primary or an alternate.
Well, the question to me comes up, well, there's two things. One, an observation. We've had an ongoing conversation beyond membership about the relevancy of CTAC. And we've had some lengthy discussions about that. And we really don't have an opportunity to vote on much very often. Typically, it's a resolution that we come up with, which is focused on a particular issue, and the resolution is directed to TPO. But that's about all the voting we actually do. So the question that I have is, if we do populate, go back up to 15 at large, then are we concerned about the fact that the at large have a greater voice than do the elected jurisdictions? I don't know if, apparently not. Hey, John, apparently not, because that's the way it was originally created with the bylaws of TPO. But
Hey, Upton, I'll editorialize and pontificate on that for a minute. Up until we got our hands slapped for passing that resolution supporting distracted driving, I was very optimistic and pleased with the work that we were doing.
Right. Okay.
And yeah, I mean, like I said, that whole situation totally caught me off by surprise. But I can't even tell you now, I've been on this thing for somewhere around 20 years. And initially I thought this was a big waste of time and we were just a checkoff box. But I tell you, I have a lot of faith and credence in what we do. And especially when it comes to policy directions, I think we slowly but surely have turned the course of the ship. So yeah, I'm you got a fan here.
And
go ahead.
Excuse me, Lisa, I was just going to add that I think there'll be some additional opportunities coming forward. We continue to try to refine our public involvement, public engagement processes. And, we've just completed a long-range plan, Connect RVA 2045 last fall. Well, we'll be starting on another one here before too long. And I think that might be some opportunities for more in-depth and continuing engagement on the part of CTAC, going forward. I'd like to see CTAC more involved and engaged in that process. There are steps along the way where I think we could certainly, ask for input from CTAC.
Hey, Upton, I'll give you one more example. We're doing it. This came up on the bike ped call the other day. So the comment was made that there won't be many copies of that printed. And I raised the question, are there any policies in place with both the PDC here or statewide with access to documents and records? If we're going online with everything, nobody seems to be addressing that if we put together things like, bike ped plans, comprehensive plans, should there be a standard policy that they're available for 10 years and even work with somebody like the state library where there's a record or an archive statewide to keep those. From a historical perspective, it's important. But I tell you, as an advocate, I know sometimes it can be a lot of work to dig and try to figure out where these are. And over time, these documents get buried. I would love for CTAC to raise that issue and see if we can set the precedent for other TPOs around Virginia.
Right. Good observation. I've been trying to attend the TPO meetings as frequently as I can. And my hopes are that the CTAC chair being quote, a non-voting member of TPO, that could be a medium for our hot buttons to be passed on to the TPO very quickly after our regular meetings versus going through a resolution and that way. And also that comments and positions that we take could be back channeled through staff, i.e. through
Right.
Ken to Chet. And I see Chet's on here, that any comments that come up or feelings that the CTAC has can be back channeled to the TPO that way, and also directly through the participation of the chairman at the TPO meetings. But we're getting sort of off topic.
Well, I just want to chime in for a moment here. I think you've done a great job, Upton, in being the face of CTAC to the TPO. That hasn't always been possible because of people's schedules to be able to participate in both bodies. But I think I think it could probably go both ways, that there's representatives from the TPO that could occasionally be invited to sit in on our meetings, so that there's not this disconnect and we are not the stepchildren that we were led to believe we were a few years ago. So I think that, it goes both ways. And I think having a presentation to the TPO, especially if we're going to have where we have identified these additional members and invite some of those members, or open invitation to those members, to come to our meeting and talk about how inclusive we're trying to be, and that what populations are represented here and how valuable that could be to the decision making on the transportation needs of the region. So I would hope that we could also be a little bit more integrated, instead of this meeting's, here are the minutes of this meeting, here are the minutes of this meeting. We read each other's minutes, but we don't mutually participate. I'd like to see more of that.
Totally agree. Thank you.
So let's pause for a minute and see if Chet has anything to share with us. Put him on the spot.
Hi, Lisa. I'm listening in. I'll be honest, I'm multitasking.
Okay.
Ken is more than
Okay.
capable of filling the role. But if you all
Okay.
have any questions directly for me, I'd be happy to jump in.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. So we, looking back at the list of EDAC people who had been involved before, I thought, trying to think through the process of identifying organizations and representatives to serve on CTAC. Maybe we have another meeting where we invite some representatives of some selected organizations to come to a meeting with this committee and have a conversation about what they would like, what benefit they see that participating in CTAC might offer, what their interests are, and then we could get a handle on who would be interested. And then I don't know if we issue an invitation. I don't know how these other at-large groups were selected in the first place, but I think we could start with Senior Connections, AARP, maybe the Resources for Independent Living, if they're still active, the SOAR group that used to be the ARC, and I also had suggested the Virginia Navigator, because they are doing, they have a subset for senior navigator, they have a subset for veterans and disabled, and they have put together a transit project with DRPT this year. So they're much more focused on transportation. So some of those representatives. So those were my thoughts, that we issue a fairly limited invitation for dialogue with us, and we set up a meeting, even if it's on Zoom, and just hear what they have to say about how transportation factors into their work and what their interests are in expansion. So I don't know if we have the ability to pre-select the groups to be in this discussion, but I just wanted to open that up and see what the possibilities were.
Hey, Lisa, let me throw this out here. And I've got kind of mixed feelings about it, but AAA, I think, is technically a nonprofit, aren't they?
I don't know.
Yeah, but I think their demographic has aged, and I've seen them do more about raising the safety issues and awareness of that. I'll throw that out. And I tell you another one that's done a good job that sounds counterintuitive is Drive Smart. They've done a lot of things related to safety that might benefit not just drivers, but everybody
Right.
else that's out there.
Yeah, I think one or the other, because they're both automobile centric.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think we make a very long list of potential folks and then kind of prioritize that list. The one thing I'm concerned about, I think a lot of them are going to be very interested in and want to participate, but then aren't able to commit to it and actually participate.
Right.
And then other groups that may be able to commit to it, we've limited them in being able to participate. And so I think if we're trying to get really good participation and, just inclusive in this with this group, we make a long list and then prioritize and kind of slowly go through and make sure that they are that they're going to come and attend and be vocal and offer up opinions and stuff like that. So
I just didn't think that sending an email saying, hey, come serve on this
Yeah, no,
committee is the way
yeah.
to do it. Yeah.
not to everybody, but
Yeah.
if we start kind of generating this list, and as we
Yeah.
find groups that are kind of like, yeah, we want to be there, but we can't make those meetings, or we have other issues, we say, okay, well, maybe there's some other way that we can include them with meeting minutes or other things, hey, we're talking about bike ped. If you want to take a look at this and submit comments, it's an open comment period. Like, we can include them in that kind of stuff, but we move to a different group who can actually come and attend the meetings and really be a participant, so that we're not losing the voice
Right.
of EDAC.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, Lisa, let me ask you, and I'm thinking from General Assembly days, to me, AARP is a no-brainer, but it's kind of an amorphous beast. It's hard to get your arms around it. They used to have a guy that was, I thought, the local executive director, but I've never had any luck, really get anything going. Have you dealt with them down at the General Assembly at all? Or
I have tried to get them more involved
Yeah.
in transportation issues. They were very focused on insurance issues.
right?
And our paths don't cross very often at the General Assembly, but I
Yeah,
do
same here.
think that I see in other states, they are very active in
Yeah.
transportation. And I think it's just a matter of going to their Virginia executive director, whoever that is right now, and saying,
Right.
y'all should be at the table. And maybe that in effect would get them more focused on transportation.
Yeah,
instead
I
of
know
just
personally,
health insurance. Yeah.
I've tried to get in touch with them. It's never worked out. And same
Yeah.
thing personally. I've been through the whole thing, parents
Yeah.
and figuring out what we're going to do. And
Yeah.
I've neighbors that can't get around. I know Ken and I've had, Ken's been a big help for
Yeah.
that, but I know a lot of friends that are going through that. And that, I think, is as the boomers age out, it'd be nice to have somebody at the table representing them.
Yeah, the individual I had listed on the EDAC list, Chris Lloyd, was an excellent candidate, because Chris has a transportation planning background.
Is he still with them?
I'm not sure, but at the time, he was, I think, sort of moving into retirement, but his career had been in transportation planning. He had worked for consultants, so he brought that background, that knowledge to the table. So
Well,
yeah.
What if we just had a dialogue, open-ended conversation, see who's, with these organizations that
Mhm.
used to be on EDAC, as well as others that we could
Sure.
identify, as long as we have a point person that has a phone number and an email,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we reach out to them, we see who joins the meeting and, how engaged they are. And then that would help us make a determination about selection.
Yeah. I like that approach. Sort of cast a wide net and
Yeah.
see who responds, and we can go from there. And as was suggested, maybe it's a pretty lengthy list, and we prioritize it as we go forward. There are doubtless other organizations that aren't on my list that we might want to include.
Hey,
Without
John,
saying that for the purpose of getting screened, but for the purposes of having a dialogue about what the needs are in transportation for your organization. And we just
Yeah.
go with that.
Hey, John, let me put you on the spot for a minute. Are you all seeing any new trends down at VCU? And just something to think about. Would it even make sense to have even an at-large student representative from VCU or representing the universities, I've got to believe, trends may be changing. Car ownership has gotten to be very expensive. And what are we up to now? 30,000 students, 32,000 plus or minus. I mean, that's a big group at VCU.
Yeah, we've got, we have our own like little mini transportation world over here. We have to partner with the city of Richmond for a lot of the infrastructure issues, but alternate transportation, the scooters, the bike share, car share, bus, remote parking lots, our own transportation system. We've got a pretty big deal. The alternate that I brought on to finally be an alternate for VCU works for the Parking and Transportation System Services. So he's connected intimately with what they're doing. It all seems the same. I haven't seen any real big shifts except for in the way that the internet and the way that you can Uber sort of reserve time on all these new technologies. To me, that's the biggest change. The personalization is the big difference. But when I look out my window, people are walking, people are riding scooters and bikes, and it's the same underlying activity. What I try to think of in my role on CTAC as sort of the interface is that I've got a constituency group of 30,000 students plus another 6,000 or 7,000, and I try to get information out through the vehicles that we have and then serve as a point person. So if we're gathering comments on something, I'll send out to a couple of the communication channels that we have and just say, come back, report to me. And then I'll package everything up and send it along to Plan RVA. So that's the role that I see. I think people who are on CTAC should have a similar role or constituency. And so I don't know if we have criteria in how we prioritize who should be a member, but it would seem to me that we want to be able to cast a net and maybe cast a different net than that would have been cast by the executive board and the committee, the big planning, the TPO itself. I looked for our bylaws. We have that little membership report, the Word doc, and then the current membership that was sent out. I was looking for our bylaws, and the most recent ones I could find were 1990. And I don't know if CTAC has bylaws or these are the TPO bylaws that reference the creation of CTAC. But I think that ought to be a fundamental document that we gather so that we know exactly why we were created on paper. Now, we may have morphed into serving some different roles, and perhaps that's a direction that we could go to clean the bylaws up. But I was looking around for that, and
yeah, we should have had those from 2018. Yeah, we should have those somewhere.
Yeah, I didn't dig around a whole lot, but Ken, maybe you could track down a copy.
Okay.
That could be in our reference library that we seem to be building.
Hey, John, one more comment back to you on VCU, just kind of thinking out loud in terms of getting somebody. If we needed someone, I would think if we went to urban planning and asked for maybe a MERP, somebody that's a candidate for a master's in urban planning,
yep.
I think we could get somebody pretty easily, and they might even bring a fresh, innovative perspective to what we're doing.
John,
So just
you don't have an alternate listed. You
Well,
could even
yeah,
have an alternate.
I just identified him about a month ago.
Right.
I've met with him and had a conversation.
Okay.
I regularly connect with the people over in the Wilder School and the urban planning group.
Mhm.
I'm in engineering. My PhD is in traffic engineering. So I did this for 23 years and the whole MPO thing down in Atlanta when I was down there. And so I kind of have a sense of how these things work. And believe it or not, and let me see if I can find her name. There is a woman who regularly interacts with Plan RVA, and she works for VCU and does something for the city of Richmond. I think she runs their alternate transportation. So we've got that connection there too. I'd love to get more students involved, especially those getting the master's degree, and they may be able to connect to different groups. But what I found is VCU as a whole is generally balkanized, and it's not one thing, it's about 20 things all duct taped together, and they're all pulling in different directions. And so I've got to be kind of gentle in how I gather input without tugging people too hard one way or the other. I do see another organization that we interact regularly, and that's Chamber RVA. I don't know how the business community gets its voices in, except calling the county or calling the TPO reps directly, playing at that high level. And we are the Community Transportation Advisory Committee. Maybe one or two people from the business community could bring a different set of voices. Chamber RVA doesn't seem to have a transportation issue that they're challenging. Another organization we interact with, the Greater Washington Partnership, does have really big transportation goals. This may be a conversation to gently engage them, and maybe they would be interested in looking at some real transportation problems. I think they're going to get bigger. And so we have a role. Another thing is that we may have a role in other areas outside of transportation. If you think of us as an advisory committee, water resource issues are going to be a real challenge, and that governs development actually more than the roads do. You build the roads after the cars are there, but you got to plan for the water before they get there. And so water and power are really where the development issues roll in. Now that may be out of what we do, since we are the Community Transportation Advisory Committee, but you know, there could be opportunities there.
Well, don't we have, John Easton represents Chamber RVA, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, you're right.
Yes.
You're right.
Yes,
Yep.
yes, yes.
And he's got a second representative as well, and Sam.
I think they're pretty, they regularly attend too.
They
So,
have been pretty good about
Yeah.
attendance. Yes. Uh-huh.
I got to think before I speak, I guess, because
Yes.
they are there.
Yes.
And the RVA Rapid Transit Group has engaged a lot of bus riders. So,
Right.
so they've been out in the community, so they may have an interest as well.
Right. They have a new communications director. I just met with him last week, as a matter of
Okay.
fact.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah,
so,
How do we-
Partnership for Smarter Growth does a lot of this stuff too, but I'm on that board, full disclosure. So, but I'll throw that out there.
And also the Richmond Office of Equity and Mobility and whatnot, Kelly with that group has a lot of planning experience. She worked with OIP at the state level. So, so I think she's pretty sharp. I
right.
can't call her name right now. Kelly, she got married. I don't remember her new name.
I know who you're talking about. Right.
Yeah. So why don't we, Ken, if you will be the receiver of those that we've identified as well as others,
Sure.
anybody can send you a name of an organization, but please have a contact person associated with it and contact information, so Ken doesn't have to go on a expedition looking for everything.
Yeah, I'll be glad to start compiling a list. If folks want to just, feed their suggestions to me, and then I can circulate it back to everybody, and we can go through that and see if there's, some that we want to place at a higher priority, some we maybe put a little bit lower, others that we want to include. Yes.
Do we connect on a regular basis with DAR, the Department for Aging and Rehabilitative Services?
Not in a big way. I know some of the folks over there, but they have really not been involved in CTAC.
They may have some internal groups that help advise them.
Mhm.
I have a special needs son, so I am familiar with what they do and the services they provide. And transportation is a big part of what they try to get people to participate in and become engaged in and have access to. They may have groups that we could partner with or share information with, and that would connect us to the aging, the rehabilitative, and the development disabled communities in one swipe.
Yeah, good point, John. Good suggestion.
And maybe somebody from GRTC specifically that deals with their care program or something. Yeah.
Okay.
So Lisa, your suggestion is that we individually brainstorm as well as staff brainstorm and send the names of the organizations as well as a suggested contact person on up to Ken.
Yeah.
And then Ken, if you could, I guess, as that list is populated, send it out to us and we can sort of think about prioritizing and getting back to you. And then we'll set up a meeting, a Zoom meeting based upon the prioritization. Is that right, Lisa?
Yeah, I think some background of we're looking to expand CTAC membership to include more of the what was formerly the EDAC population, as well as maybe some other missing parts that I think John raised some good issues there. And we want to have an initial conversation about about transportation with your constituency and what it does, what it doesn't do, what we might want to address in a regional way, not specific to a particular agency, but we have a broader interest in how we develop a long-range plan and how we provide transportation and mobility. So, I think that not getting into the details of the meeting, but maybe if there's something in the bylaws, I don't know that we need to get into all that in this first conversation. We need to know what they are, Ken, of the bylaws.
Yeah,
But,
and
I don't
I'll
want
check those out.
to scare people away necessarily with all
Yeah.
of that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that and I'll double check this, but I think that the only bylaws are those for the TPO at large, and I think within that it speaks to the fact that there will be a CTAC.
And probably, going back to when the MPOs were first developed, probably what was that, in the 60s or 70s? What the
Mhm.
purpose of a TPO was, what the purpose, do they all have a CTAC, and just
Right.
the origin of it, and then how it's changed over the years with Richmond. Yeah.
Right.
Because maybe we'll go through some of that with our workshop in March, but
Okay.
that's baffling to people who land on the CTAC to start with, no matter what their designation is, representing a county or
Right.
at-large group or whatever. As you're thrust into this, you're like, what the heck is this? Where did this all come from? So I think we would have all benefited from that back when we came on.
Yeah.
That's a good question for Chet. Chet, is there an onboarding document that you've put together either for new members of the executive board or CTAC? So that, it talks about the transportation planning process and how we actually decide, or this eventually, set the agenda for the flow of federal funds into the region. It's a big deal.
We do have an onboarding process or document packet that hasn't been used probably in the last 18 months, but when we do have new board members come on, we try to keep that updated and pass that along. So yeah, that could definitely be used or adapted for CTAC specifically. But yeah, there's something we can certainly share.
That's great.
Well, anything else in this role? We thank you for agreeing, coming together and agreeing to be a part of this process and trying to strengthen CTAC by expanding our membership and becoming a more vital organization and helpful to planning better transportation going forward. Nobody's interested in just doing this and just meeting and going through the function of serving as a committee if you don't have a larger purpose. And I think that's why we all wanted to be a part of it. And this might be a way that we can elevate that and get more out of it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I also think many of these agencies or organizations that we interface with may have their own investment plans that they're doing. DARS, for example, I'm sure is pouring money into different areas to support those constituencies. A little bit of alignment, recognizing that we don't have money for everything, but if they've got something and we've got something, we can align our two plans a little bit to better serve both constituencies that overlap.
Do we think we ought to sort of add a time frame for some of this activity and set up a potential next or our when we want to have our potential folks meet with us? I always like to have dates and time frame out there. A couple of weeks, a month, or what are the thoughts of the group as to when we would meet together again?
Well, Ken, why don't you tell us what your workload is? But we're probably looking at March anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. I could turn around, a list within the next couple of weeks.
Mhm.
Hey,
And our
hey,
next
Lisa, let me-
CTAC is the 17th. Yeah.
Do we
me
want to
throw.
say that,
Go ahead.
sorry, Shan. Do we want to say that we will send Ken our recommendations, our point of contacts over the next 2 weeks
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
as a
idea.
first step
Right,
Yeah. I think that's
Yeah.
good.
so that he can send out the list?
right.
Hey, Lisa, let me throw an idea out to staff
Uh-huh.
if I could. Because this is about the time of year when the Virginia Association of Planning District Commissions gets together and meet. And are you guys planning on attending that meeting? Because I think it's coming up any day now, isn't it? It's usually like second week in February. Anyway,
Mhm.
it's been pretty amazing to me to spend some time up at the COG up in Northern Virginia. What if you guys could network around with some of your peers to see what other PDCs are doing and who they have on their boards, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, let's look for best practices
Well,
and leverage what they're doing.
afternoon, VAMPO is having a board of directors meeting. I don't know if Ken, if you and Chet go to that. But if you are, that might be something to raise with the group that, is anybody else doing this and any other MPO across the state?
Yeah,
Since
Lisa,
the-
I'm on the board, so I'll be there. I could certainly ask the question. My understanding is that most MPOs in the state don't even have a citizens committee, but we could certainly ask and see if there's any updated information.
Okay, I know that Fredericksburg does because one of the delegates was serving on it, and thank you for sending her the invitation. So I think that, they might be interested in something like this if they do have a CTAC, and if they don't have a CTAC, why not? Just get people thinking about it more. Yeah.
And hey, Chet, if you have a chance afterwards to mention that records retention and availability and plant that seed, I think that's going to be something definitely we want to look into over the next 6 months to a year.
So do we want to look at when this meeting, and I assume it would be a Zoom meeting, when that might occur in March? We have the actual CTAC meeting on the 17th.
Right.
We could do it afterward if that's a good afternoon. Yeah. And will that be a Zoom or will that likely be in person?
I think
the
we'll-
CTAC.
Likely looking at a Zoom.
Okay.
There's
I apologize for having to leave the meeting. but I had to go get my calendar. Some of you may be old enough to know what this is, but the advantage is I don't have to worry about connectivity. I don't have to worry about batteries.
I used the word
Whatever works,
Rolodex in a
Upton.
sentence last week.
Yeah. So do we want to block out the 17th from 12 to 3 p.m.?
Well, there's a Better Together series that afternoon starting at 2. I don't know if any of you all want to participate in that or not.
How about doing 11 to 2? Do we want to do it beforehand?
That's fine with me. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
That's on the 17th.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's our CTAC meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
So the membership committee will get together at 11 via Zoom.
Well, is this the meeting where we're going to invite everybody?
Because that's not going to give us much time to engage in conversation with potential members.
Yeah, I think we need
Yeah.
more time than that. Yeah.
Okay.
We need at least
So
2 hours.
do we think on the 17th that we would kind of go through the list that we've generated and prioritize?
That would be my thought, Amber, is that by the 17th, we'd have a list of
Okay. Okay.
suggested.
And then we'll figure out when we want to invite them at that
Right.
meeting.
Right. That would
Okay.
be my thought.
Okay. All right. But we're probably looking at then April for the meeting for all the outreach meetings.
Yeah, I think that after the 17th, if we can come to some consensus as to what agencies, organizations, individuals we want to invite to a sort of a virtual get together, to ascertain their interest in serving on CTAC, we would do that probably sometime in early April.
Okay.
My hope is that we will be in a position to, if you will, make offers to organizations and wrap this up, say at most by our, what do we have, our July meeting, is that?
Yeah.
Okay, so.
I think we.
Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think that's a good process. Have a goal to complete the process by July.
I personally like the idea, especially since we have Zoom now, of as CTAC comes up with discussion points, opportunities that we maybe as a general policy create ad hoc committees or smaller groups that engage in conversation and report back to CTAC. I think that's an efficient and effective way of getting input and reporting back and getting more activity at the CTAC level.
Right.
I'm tired. Don't have some of the issues you guys do, but.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's a good first step. Yeah.
All right.
All
Well,
right.
I'll look forward to getting everybody's list, and I'll start putting that information together.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks.
guys.
All right. Thank you.